everybody, this is Zach Dittmars, production manager, art director, and as Lenny calls, kayak fishing Sharpie for Fish Talk Magazine. Thanks for tuning in to Live with Lenny. If you're first time tuning in, welcome to the show. If you're a regular, thanks again for joining us. Tonight we'll be talking about critical items to look for in fishing boats. If you love fishing and love boats, that's probably why you're here. So welcome. We have a very, very special guest tonight. Very special. I'd like you to welcome Mr. Lenny Rudo.
Hey, what's happening, Zach?
How you doing?
First off, I want to thank you for putting together that awesome pre-roll. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's fun, you know. That's all. And those are fishing adventures mostly that we've been on since the inception of Fish Talk 5-6 years ago.
Yes, and every time I see that cobia splashing, I'm just like, oh, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. I want to do it again.
Yeah,
great stuff.
Fun stuff. Well, you know, hopefully we'll have a new video just in a few months after a few more fishing adventures that we have.
We have one planned coming up.
We should. We have two planned this month.
Oh my God, there's a second one?
Yeah.
All right, I'm forgetting, but we can't talk about it because we don't want to give it away.
No, we can't.
Okay. I'm gonna have to look on my calendar. Oh my gosh, what have I committed to? But they're fun fishing adventures. And before we get into the fish boats, we are going to talk a little bit of fishing, and we might intersperse a little bit of fishing throughout. We should also point out that we have a prize to give away tonight, people. There's going to be a winner, and usually we just draw out of the hat from someone who asks a question. Don't forget, folks, feel free to pop your questions and your comments into the comment section, and Zach will field them, and we'll bring them up, and we'll try and get them answered. But I have like a little sort of mini quiz, and I want to go with the first person to get the correct answer as we go through some of the slides tonight. They are going to win. Now, if nobody guesses, then at the end, maybe we'll have to draw just at random. But somebody's going to be deserving a very cool prize, and we will get to that later. Meanwhile, did we have some announcements for upcoming events you wanted to pop off real quick before we get into the current fishing?
I did. So very exciting. This weekend is the Ultimate Light Tackle over at Cult Classic. Unfortunately, it sold out almost immediately. So hopefully the guys over at Island Tackle put that together again. Now, you know, if you go wait outside, maybe you can scalp some tickets. You got Lenny, you got Patrick Latham from Shimano, Sean Kimbrough, Lonnie from GI. I mean, it's a great lineup. So hopefully they do that again. So stay tuned for that. Next weekend is the Southern Maryland Recreational Fishing Organization's show down in Solomons. But for any other shows, you can go to fishtalkmag.com and type in shows up in the search box. And we have a great lineup of all the upcoming fishing shows. And there's still tons of shows coming in March. Not to mention in April, there's a lot of great stuff too with the Bay Bridge Boat Show. We're going to have a huge fish talk exhibit there with seminars. I think I've heard there might be some snakehead cook-offs going or something like that happen. I'm not sure if that's going to come together, you know. But in April 27th, the Fly Fishing Film Tour will be coming to the Annapolis Maritime Museum. Tickets are limited and are available now. You can go to Fly. I'll have to look up the URL. I'll put that up later. Fly Fish Film Tour. It's on our Facebook page, so you can find it over there. And,
yeah, it's the F3T thing. And the video is utterly spectacular. I have watched some of the clips, and it's just mind-blowing stuff. Total National Geo type fishing adventure stuff. Very cool. And that Southern Maryland show coming up the weekend after next is a really good one. That's one that a lot of folks want to get down to, especially if you haven't hit the winter shows. You know, you're running out of time. So that's definitely one to check out.
There's also this month the Maryland Sportsman Show. I believe that is up near Hagerstown. So that's one, hunting and fishing, pretty cool show. That's been going on for a few years now. So definitely check that out.
Rocking. All right. Well, let's do a quick run through on some of the fishing happenings right now before we get to the fish boats. Why don't you go ahead and pop up slide number 1, Zach? Because I got to tell you, this one was a thrill, people. All right. I was not expecting this. I'm in the Patuxent River, in a little offshoot off the Patuxent River, fishing for perch last Thursday. And I'm fishing with my ultralight gear, 6-pound test, a shad dart, and a grass shrimp on it. And lo and behold, this thing grabs my jig, my shad dart, and just starts screaming line. 25 minutes later, we slid the net under this 36-pound blue cat. Right now, if you want to go fishing, these guys are biting. And I tell you what, he was 36 pounds. That's not even like a giant blue cat. It's a nice one, but you can catch them 50 pounds and upwards. They push up into the 90s in the Potomac. So I haven't heard of any that big in the Patuxent. This guy actually really surprised me because I didn't think they were this big in the Patuxent, frankly. But he was one of several and never did catch a perch that day, although later we found out that there was a white perch in this guy's belly. So evidently the blue cat is better at catching perch than I am. All right, Zach, why don't you go ahead and take us to the next slide? Another fishing opportunity for folks right now is definitely pickerel. Now, the Winter Pickerel Championship came to an end as of March 1. This is our good friend Zach with a fly-caught pickerel. How big was that fish, Zach?
That was a 24.5-inch pickerel.
That's a citation-sized pickerel. That's over citation.
That is correct.
And how many times had you gone fly fishing for pickerel prior to this?
Oh,
This
was really the first concerted effort.
Yeah, I was going to say, had you ever caught a pickerel on a fly?
No, but I had taken one out. I had taken one out with me and cast a few, but never like a targeted trip where I didn't take anything. But
no bait, no jigs,
flies in my vest, one rod, and a net. That's all I took.
Well, congratulations. That is pretty darn cool. And I don't think we have an official announcement yet, so I'm not going to spoil anything. But I believe, looking at the leaderboards in the Winter Pickerel Championship, this fish here is in the running for the fly category. So, you know what? Even though the championship's over, we love that. That's a lot of fun. But if you want to go fishing and get a big bend in your rod, these fish are still going to be biting strong for at least the next month. The mill ponds, the tidal creeks, any of the Western Shore tribs, the Magathy, the Severn, you got a good bet of catching them. Any of the Eastern Shore tribs, really. So right now, if you want to get out, that's a good bet. And let's go to the next slide because there's another really good bet right now. This week's reports, I got in the raw reports from my reports editor, Dylan, today. And this next one, he popped up multiple times. And
hey, Ron says hi.
Oh, hey there, Ron. From Southern California. I love it. Man, I don't think we have many folks tune in from California, so that's cool. Crappie. So crappie have been biting really, really strong in a lot of the ponds, in the tribs, in the rivers. The water temps have bumped up just enough that these fish are really hitting hard. This is Herb with a really nice one. We got reports from private ponds, public ponds, tributaries. The Pocomoke was mentioned in specific, but pretty much across the board, anywhere there are crappie, they have really turned on with this warm weather. So we got a little bit of cold coming. Hopefully that won't knock them out. But if you get a chance in the next few days, that is a fish to target. And of course, the big one that everybody's thinking about right now. Come on with it, Zach. Bring me that next slide.
I got to interrupt real quick. We got to also mention Herb caught a 28.25-inch pickerel this winter.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Herb caught maybe the biggest pickerel of that tournament. So there were some other 28s up there too. Anyway, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
So, no, that's okay. As of the last time I checked in with Dave, Herb's 28.25 was not only the biggest fish of the year thus far, but was so far a tournament record. So,
way to go, Herb.
Yeah, way to go, Herb. That's a heck of a fish. All right, bring on that next one. Let's see it. Because everybody's got perch on their mind right now. Everybody knows the bite should be busting loose at any time. Here's the scoop, folks. Going through the reports, and also I had multiple readers check in with me this week. It's been very hero or zero to date, mostly zero. The Magathy has had a really good bite. That seems to kind of be the highlight thus far. But all your usual spots, Red Bridges, Greensboro, the creeks on the Potomac, they've really been kind of lackluster thus far. The Patuxent up near Wasons. There was an early push of fish about 2 weeks ago, and guys that were out there and timed it right got, 6, 8, 10 fish. Then they really kind of disappeared. Folks haven't been catching them. One big exception has been up on the Susquehanna. Now, on the Susquehanna, they're still in the deep holes, so they haven't really gone to spawn yet. They're just beginning to spread out. But folks who are going out and targeting them in those holes are getting good numbers of fish. Now, this is going to change any day. We had our first report this week of eggs that were actually spotted in the Magathie. So they seem to have kind of gone there first. But these fish are going to be biting and biting hard pretty much any day. It could happen anytime. Might happen today. I might not have heard yet. It might have happened today. The temperatures are right there on the borders. Really funny story that illustrates this from Allen's Fresh. This came from our contributor, Eric Packard. He talked to some guys who were fishing on the shoreline. I think it was 2 days ago. They didn't catch much. They caught like 3 fish. There were some guys there in kayaks who went upriver who crushed them. They had like 20 fish a person. Literally the very next day, there were guys on the shoreline and there were guys in kayaks going upriver. The guys on the shoreline crushed them, caught dozens. The guys in the kayaks who went upriver didn't catch them. So we're at that quirky stage in the perch run where it is a hero or zero thing. And, you just don't know. It could go either way. But in these next few days, certainly in these next few weeks, we should see a lot of really good action. It should really kick in. And then, of course, the whites will follow them up. All right. Should we get to our first video, Zach? We tied in a little bit of video tonight to keep it interesting. And this first one illustrates a great point about looking at fish boats. And, honestly, I've looked at a ton of boats through the years. I couldn't tell you how many. I've tested a lot of boats. And this one thing is probably one of the biggest things I look for every time I jump aboard a new boat. Let's see the video. And that gives me a chance to get a sip of beverage.
Hatches. They come up on a gaseous strut, perfectly finished inside. They're gasketed. The box is guttered. That is a hatch. You've just got to love. Now, wait a sec. Did you hear how that closes? No big slam, just a whoosh.
Hatches, people. Hatches. I think of a hatch as a window into a boat's soul. I really do. Because here's the thing. It's really easy to lay up a fiberglass hatch that's rough on the inside and just stick it on a boat and leave it at that. It's really easy. It's fast. And that means it's cheap. When you see a hatch that is finished on both sides, it closes into a gutter. It's gasketed. It's got a gas assist strut to pull it up. The hinges are flush. The bolt ends inside of the hatch where the hinges are mounted are flush or are laminated over. It really takes a lot of work and a lot of design and a lot of execution to get the hatch that nice and pretty and perfect. And when you close it and it closes with a whoosh, you know that the builder just got that sizing perfect. Everything about it is perfect. Very low tolerances. That's very expensive. It's very expensive. You don't see that super duper beautiful hatch on a cheap boat. You won't. And I don't mean to knock the cheap hatch, okay? Because it can get the job done. And look, I'm going to get the boat that I can afford. And if I can't afford the super duper boat with the super duper hatch, I can have that cheap hatch and it'll get the job done. And I'll love that boat and catch a ton of fish from it. And that's great. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you look at that hatch, that gives you tremendous insight into the lengths the builder went to when they were building that boat. Also want to mention something that you'll see a lot of times is a hatch that opens back on a strap. The strap thing, it prevents the hatch from falling backwards. And, then you got fiberglass on fiberglass. But also, I guarantee you one day someone's going to lean on it and rip that strap off. Or you're going to hit a wave, the boat's going to rock, and that hatch is going to fall down. So I'm not a big giant fan of the straps. That's something I kind of look out for these days. The gas assist strut is awesome. It holds it up. It comes up easy. It goes down easy. Also friction hinges. You'll see these friction hinges on a lot of hatches where you lift the hatch up halfway and it holds it there. Those are also pretty darn nice. They work really, really well. But remember, when you're looking at a fish boat, pay attention to those hatches because that will tell you an awful lot about the level of detail and the level of effort that the builder went to in building that boat. All right, Zach, let's move on to the next slide if we could, please. We're going to bop by this one kind of quick. Hey, look, a hey from Kim. I love it. How cool is that? All right, next slide up. We are going to take a peek at my new boat, which I'm very excited about. There it is. And what I want you to look at here, I know you don't get a great view of the boat right here, but what I want you to look at is the leaning post, and underneath of it, you can see this object. Now, most boats of this type, we've got a center console, leaning post. You're going to have a slide-out cooler underneath is very, very common. Some people like them. That's great. I don't particularly like them. I've got a ton of cooler areas on this boat, and those slide-out mechanisms really, yeah, they can be kind of hinky. They tend to be a pain in the butt. The one thing about my boat that didn't thrill me, and this boat does thrill me, but the one thing that doesn't is the onboard tackle stowage. Now, I want to be able to put this boat on a trailer, and I want to go to Point Lookout and fish for cobia. I want to go to Cape Charles and fish for sheep's head. I want to go to Havre de Grace and fish for yellow perch right now. Whatever. Bottom line, I don't want to grab a tackle box every time I do that. I don't want to lug it back and forth to the boat. I don't want to have to worry about what did I forget. I want all my tackle to be on board. So Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide, which will show you a better picture of what is underneath this leaning post. This is the onboard tackle station that I added under the leaning post instead of having the slide out cooler there. And you can put this on just about any boat in that spot. This is made by an outfit. Teak Isle is the manufacturer. It's sold through Boat Outfitters. And people, there are about 100 different versions of this in all different shapes and sizes. So don't worry about will this fit under my leaning post because they're going to make one that does. They have all different kinds. So here you got 2 big tackle boxes, 3 large tackle boxes. You got your knife pliers holders and your leader holder, and you got 2 bulk drawers. And I tell you what, all my gear for fishing, all the different ways I fish, all the different spots I mentioned, fit inside of here. The only thing that doesn't fit in here is going to be your springtime trolling gear, your umbrellas, your big boxes with tandems, that kind of thing. I don't have to worry about that because I don't really do that kind of trolling. I do have one Tupperware box in addition to this that I keep in a different location that has mackerel trolling gear because those planers take up a ton of room. But a unit like this really does the trick. It really does. And again, it'll go right under the leaning post. Now, if you have a different kind of boat, you might not have a leaning post there, whatever. Again, they have a million versions of tackle stations. So when you're looking at a boat, this is a big one in my mind, is how much onboard tackle do I have? I don't want to lug around the tackle box. But when you find the right boat for you, this is not a deal killer because you can modify it. This is something you can add. All right, now, are you ready to win a prize, people? Who's going to win a prize tonight? We're going to find out. Let's go to the next slide, Zach. We have a prize donated by Wayne Young. He has written for us a ton. He has an article in every edition of Fishback going back, I don't know how long. He's authored a bunch of books, and some of his books have been out there for a little while. And when we were talking, we were emailing, I said, Wayne said, which book should we give away as a prize? And I said, man, I don't know, because we might get a prize winner who's already got one of your books. So he generously said, okay, we're going to give the winner their pick. So winners, whoever the winner is, you can pick from all his different books. And Zach, go ahead and take us to the next slide. here, this is going to be the trick, people. You're going to have to figure out what's wrong. This is a live well. It is on an extremely high dollar boat. And when I opened it up and saw there was, honestly, it's just a flaw. I was shocked to see it. I want to know, put it in the comments, people, who can tell me what is wrong with this live well. And I'm not talking about the shape. Ideally, it would be oval, but they have rounded the corners. And in this particular case, because of where it's molded in, they really didn't have much choice in the shape. It would be better if it was oval. But there's something else. There's a glaring issue. So pop it into the comments. Come on, pop it in. Pop it in. You can almost describe it in like 3 words. What was that? I don't even know what Zach is up to here.
We got a few coming in here, Lenny. Okay, I'm gonna put them up in the order they came in.
All right, let's see them.
All right,
let's see it.
Gary says, "Is it the way it's molded?"
Not really. It's not what I'm looking for, Gary.
All right, the Boss Man aerator.
Nope, it's got great aeration. You can see it's got inlets top and bottom, so it's multiple level. So it's going to swirl the water around really good and aerate it really well.
It's the game show music. That's what's going on.
I love the music. I love it.
All right, Will Kenny, drain not graded.
Okay, that's interesting because I'm looking at that picture and I'm saying Will is right, and I didn't even notice that. And I have been on boats with drains that were not properly graded. And what happens is, at the end of the day, at some point, a fish gets sucked down there and gets stuck in the hose and dies. And then the drain gets all clogged up. And then a week later, you wonder why your boat smells so bad. So, Will, that wasn't even what I was looking for, but you're going to win something. We're going to see if another person gets what I was looking for. If they do, I'm going to come up with a prize for you. You'll get one of my books, okay? Because you're right. That was a great catch.
Okay, so Dom should have a clear top to look inside.
Dom, the clear top to look inside is good, but it's not what I call 100% necessary. And in this particular case, because the top of it is actually a seat, I'm sure you could still do it. But that's not what I'm looking for. It's not what I would call a flaw.
All right.
Oh, Kevin. Kevin's got it. Kevin's got it. It shouldn't be white. I thought somebody was going to come in and say it should be blue.
Someone did do that, but it was after Kevin.
Oh my.
Okay, let's.
Who was it that came in with the blue?
Chuck should be before blue in well.
All right, we need to register somehow, Zach. I'll leave this up to you, the tech whiz. Chuck, Kevin, and Will, they all got to win something, and we'll make it happen. I can't promise you everyone's going to get one of Wayne's books, but we're going to make it all happen because you've all got it right. Now look. Good Lord, can you please make that music stop?
So who won?
I feel like they all did. All 3 of them did. I feel like I'm in a Miami hotel room.
So they all won?
They're all going to win something. Yeah. I didn't expect this to happen, but Will popped up a surprise one. And then Kevin and Chuck were like, both right on there. Kevin got it first, but Chuck explained it more fully and accurately.
Okay. Well, let's run through some of the other things because there's a lot of intelligent guesses.
Really? Oh, bring them on up.
Okay. So Matthew says no strainer on the discharge.
Well, that's the same as Will. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Missing a drain tube.
Well, that would be a standpipe, but this design doesn't use a standpipe.
So Cynthia said there should be a colander-like device to lift out the fish. I'm not so sure about that, but I've seen those in some live ones. But nice guess, Cynthia. Very nice.
They work good in minnow buckets.
No drain. A lot of the same things reiterated, but we just, everyone participated. Let's throw these all up real quick. See
Everybody's loving the see-through lid.
pick up on bot. I don't know what that means. No vent. Won't fill up.
It'll fill up.
No gas strut.
So usually on the live wells, they don't put on the gas struts because they just die after a while because they're constantly salt watered.
Well, there's a lot of right answers here, even though they're not your correct answer.
You're absolutely right. I like set myself up.
The latch pin sticks up.
Yeah, that's one of those catches that it pops down on. They don't bother me.
Matthew also said it should be blue. That came in 3 minutes after Kevin's. I like this one. Charlie says there's no bait in it.
Oh my God! All right,
that's a good one.
Charlie, you win a bobber. Okay, what little red and white bobber. Next time you see me, I'll give you a bobber.
David has a good comment. It's hard to tell in a picture, but does not look like it's in the back of the boat. So this would be a bouncy live well.
It would be a bouncy live well. So most of these boats on this level, they'll have live wells fore and aft. And you might want to run with the bait in the aft well, but you want that forward well there so that when you're fishing, you can put some baits up there and everybody doesn't have to travel the entire boat all the way back and forth every time they need to get a new bait.
All right. So, Lenny, how should they shoot you an email?
Email works great. Yeah, or we can PM in Facebook or whatever. So, Lenny at Fish Talk Mag. Let me know who you are, and we're going to get you all prizes. So the whole blue thing, I do want to explain this just a little bit more in case there are folks out there who haven't heard of this. And I actually trace this back to Pursuit Boats. They get the credit for this. Back in the late 90s, I was testing a Pursuit, and they've always been very conscientious builders. And back then, they were much more fishing oriented than they are today. And the guy I was with, I opened up the well and it was blue inside. I'd never seen it before. And the guy said, yeah, we're doing that on all our live wells now. And I asked him why. And he said they actually wanted to get their live wells working better. So what they did was they went to Mote Marine Laboratories in Florida. Pursuit was a Florida builder. And they actually brought the scientists from the laboratory onto their boat and said, what do we need to do different to make the baits live better? And one of the things they said was, well, look, you've got this white container. You close the lid so it's dark in there. And then you run half an hour, 2 hours, whatever, to get to where you're fishing. And then you open up this lid, and all of a sudden, this bright sunlight blasts down into this white compartment. And these poor little fish freak out. They've never experienced anything like this in their life before. And they're freaking out, swimming like nuts, bouncing off the walls, beating themselves up. And the scientists suggested make it blue inside. And then when the lid comes up, the fish will at least be in an environment and that it's experienced before, and they'll freak out less. And Pursuit did that, I don't know, 3-4 years, and then you started seeing everybody do it. And today you see more blue live wells by far than you do anything else. So that's where that comes from. And I didn't expect to have 3 winners. I thought we were going to have 1 winner. I don't know what happened, Zach. What happened?
If only you knew someone that had a couple other books laying around.
Right. That's why I say they're all going to win something. I'll be sending out some books myself, and I'm cool with
that. Gary, thanks for tuning in, Gary. Gary's a frequent guest here. He asked about I think he's asked about your boat.
Who makes my boat? Camus. It's a Camus 26 HB. Which we can probably find a much better picture of. It was on the cover of Fish Talk. Gosh, was that the November cover, Zach?
I got it right here. There you go.
Oh, there it is. There's the boat. Yep, tackle station under the leaning post.
And that boat is brand spanking new. And I got to say, you love that tackle station so much. That came off your previous boat. That's the only thing that was not brand spanking new on the boat, because you liked it that much.
Zach, I didn't think about it, but that is accurate.
That's a testament of how much you appreciate that tackle station.
That is accurate. Nothing else transferred from the Glacier Bay to the Camas. I wanted everything to be new and fresh, but that tackle station, I really like that
Well,
thing.
we could talk about the Camas all day, but he was asking about the boat.
Oh, the live well. So, Gary, I'm embarrassed to say this. I'm not 1,000% sure. I actually went through my photo bank, which is massive, and found it in there. And it's from, I don't know, could be 3 years ago, it could be 5 years ago. It's just a picture of a live well that I took. At the time, I probably went, oh, it's white. I took a picture. I'm not sure. Sorry about that.
Now, Lenny, is there some way to an aftermarket? Someone could just do a wrap or something in there, probably.
You could certainly paint it with blue gel coat. I'm not sure if you want to wrap it with anything. A live well's got constant water motion.
Yeah, but boats get wrapped on the outside.
Well, you're right. You're right about that. I don't know. I've never heard of it being done, but you're right. Wraps go on the outside of boats. Yeah, so I
I'm just
guess
thinking business opportunity. So someone wrapping live wells. One day I'll have $1 million.
new business coming to you soon.
Blue
All
duct
right, go
tape.
ahead and throw the next slide up there.
David says blue duct tape.
Blue duct tape.
I don't think they make a light blue duct tape. But so Lenny, let me ask you this. Your boat is light blue. Does that mean you make all the fish around your boat calm in the bay?
I hope so. I hope they're calm as I approach.
Well, we got an interesting comment. Robert thinks that other researchers show that the color doesn't really matter as much as the proper water flow for bait in the tank to be the most critical.
Well, I wouldn't argue that it's more critical than the water flow. I absolutely would not argue that. Water flow is number one. But like I say, I like that live well I'm cool with because it's got multi-level water flow. And that's usually what everybody says is most important about the water flow is that you have multiple levels. If you have just an inlet at the top, it can circulate the water just at the top and you get a dead spot in the middle or at the bottom. But that well had two outlets which blast 360 degrees, so you should have a really good flow. But I would agree with that. Water flow is going to be capacity might be number one. Capacity or water flow, that's going to be at the top. But the blue thing is pretty darn easy. I mean, I don't know why they don't do it.
Another question, I think, from Matthew. Is it better to be round or oval? Lenny, I'll bring that picture back up because we're talking about it quite a lot. So anyone tuning in might be a little confused.
This is not an ideal shape, which I mentioned at the outset, but that's because of the way it's molded into a forward console seat. So it's got to be that shape or they can't have it. Oval or round, I've never heard anyone say one is better than the other. The critical thing is just that it is not squared corners. Like years ago, I actually was on a boat. I'm not going to mention the manufacturer because they built a good boat. I don't want to embarrass them. But they actually built a rectangular live well. It was rectangular. And I had this boat for a project boat for an entire summer. And you would put fish in it and they would all swim directly into a corner and then just boop, 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 against the side, right in the corner. But as to oval versus round, I'm not sure there's a monster difference there.
All right, thank you. I think we all caught up on questions.
Okay. People like their live wells. We got good live well questions. I love it. All right, go ahead and take us to the next one if we're all right, wires. Can we talk wires, people? So these are obviously some gorgeous wires. This is obviously in a big boat. This is in an engine room. And before anybody asks, I don't remember what big boat. I don't. It's just I looked at the wires and I was like, wow, they're so pretty. And I snapped off a picture. I don't know what the heck I was on. But look, any boat, I don't care how well it's built, somewhere between 3 and 10 years down the road, those wires, you're going to have a wiring problem somewhere with something. Some wire is going to jiggle and give way. Something's going to happen. You're going to get corrosion on a connection, something. And when you see a boat that's wired like this, it's a lot more likely to be 10 years down the road versus 3 years down the road, right? The critical items to look for are that the wires are well loomed, so they're not all helter-skelter, and they're supported, so they're not swinging around or rubbing against anything. as the boat is moving through the water. When you grab the wiring in a boat and shake it, you want it to be firm so that the vibrations of pounding through the sea don't lead to it constantly doing something like this, because eventually that'll wear out, a connection somewhere, the wire itself, who knows, something's going to wear out. Now, I didn't have a picture of this in my photo bank. I was a little bummed. But one thing I want to specifically mention that we see a lot in the, I'll call them medium-sized center consoles that many of us use on the Chesapeake, are say our 20 to 26 footers. Something you'll see a lot is in the anchor locker, you'll see wires running to the bow lights. And often they'll be hanging, they might have like a tie wrap supporting them, maybe against a bolt that's coming through the hold deck joint in the anchor locker. They'll be up on an edge and they'll run near the hold deck joint. They might only have one or two supports in the whole anchor locker, and they droop in between them. Something to look out for, big time. Because what happens is you put your anchor in the anchor locker, the anchor bounces around. Maybe it grabs that wire and rips it out. Or maybe the first time you go to anchor the boat, you open up the anchor lock, you grab the anchor, you pull it out, you rip out that wire because something catches on it. Regular problem. I think I've ripped wires in this way on at least 2 boats, maybe 3. And it's another one of those issues. It's not insurmountable. You should never look at a boat and think that's a deal killer. I mean, all boats have their pluses and minuses. They all do. All boats have their strengths and weaknesses. Never look at one thing, for the most part, and think to myself, okay, that boat's no good, because there's always pluses and minuses. It's something you can fix. You can add supports most of the time, but that's something to look out for. It's something to take note of. If you have a boat right now, you might want to look at that and, figure out, well, one day will I rip this out? One of the big things that I like to do when I'm looking at a boat is stick my head into places that nobody ever sticks their heads. And that includes the anchor locker. Stick your head in there, look around, see what you see. You can not only see, did the builder support that wiring, you'll also get a good look at the hold deck joint that you can't get in many places in the boat, because that's somewhere that nobody was ever meant to look. And I guarantee you the builder did not finish off that area inside of the anchor locker. You stick your head in there and look up in both directions, and you'll see basically what amounts to the raw hull to deck joint inside of the boat. You'll see if it, did they put lots and lots of plexus or 5200 in there to completely seal it? Did they screw through the joint, or did they through bolt through the joint? You'll see that. So that's another really good window into a boat, is in the anchor locker. All right, we got another video. Should we roll the next video, Zach?
Yes. This one does not have audio. You ready?
I am ready. So here you see me sitting in the bow of a boat. And what I want you to notice is how this bow is really super duper deep, right? This is on a, oh gosh, I'm blanking. What was this, Zach?
Aquasport 2500.
Aquasport 2500. Thank you very much. This was the Chesapeake Bay Boat Show. All right, now, go ahead and take us right to the next slide, if you would, Zach, because I want to compare the two. And now you're going to see my boat, the Camus 26HB, and what the bow inside of this boat looks like. Look at how much lower this is. You don't have that deep bow, right? So you'll see boats with really deep bows, and you'll see boats with bows that are really shallow and not very deep at all. Again, this is another area where you see a trade-off, and it's a very straightforward trade-off. And which is right for you only can be answered by you personally. I like having this shallow bow. Why? It's really easy to reach the water. It's really easy to land fish on the bow of this boat. I can reach over and wash my hands in the water if I want to. It's just really low and easy for me to get to the water. Now, it also catches a lot less wind. And if you ever drift fish on a breezy day, that can be a really big deal. So why do people like the deep bow? Well, look, if my kids were still 5 or 6 years old, I would not want to put them in this boat every day. Okay? I would want that big deep bow to hold them in there, to contain them. I haven't taken my dog on this boat yet, and honestly, I'm scared he's just going to jump right off because he can. Like, well, that aquasport, that wouldn't be an issue, right? You can put the kids up there in the bow, put the cushions in the bow, put them, corral them, and they're safe and secure, and you don't have to worry about it. It's also a big deal for a lot of new boaters, particularly first-time boat buyers, tend to get very, very nervous by low gunnels and a low bow. They really want that tallness there because it makes you feel safe and secure. It keeps you contained inside. So it's a plus and a minus. It's a very direct trade-off. And that's something that every boat buyer should be looking for and be cognizant about. And you should, have it running through your mind when you're looking at a fish boat. Do I want that tall bow? Do I want that low bow? It's kind of a big deal. It's a big thing, and it's different types are better for different people. All right, well, let's go on. We got one more video here coming up. Let's see one more video.
No, I am a fish head, so I'm going to look at this from the angler's perspective. And the first thing is, hey, this transom bench seat, it's comfy, sure. But look, I want to fish. It's in my way. Not a problem. You just grab the strap right there, and away she goes.
Okay, now this was on a Grady White Freedom, which is a dual console. It's not what you would call a hardcore fish boat, but it's a good fish boat for a lot of folks, including family anglers. Got a lot of, a lot of relaxation spots. It's got a lot of protection. For family anglers, often that dual console is a really good pick. And I love the Grady's. I'm a big Grady fan, have been forever, and it takes. They built a great boat. But what I really hope you noticed was how I just grabbed that little strap and flipped that seat. It was a piece of cake, right? People, I'm here to tell you, they're not all like that. And anytime you're standing on a boat that has a fold-away transom bench seat, please don't make any judgments about that unit until you actually operate it. Try and put it up, try and fold it down. Because when you're fishing, that's a really big deal. You've got to be able to get that out of the way. It's great for when you're running, right? It's great to have that seating when you're running. But when you're fishing, you got to be able to get rid of that thing. And some of those seats, I'll tell you what, I have sat there and scratched my head and fought with them and scratched my head some more and fought with them some more. There have been one or two cases where I couldn't even figure out how to make the darn thing work. There have been a couple other cases where it's been really hard to manipulate the seat. And in one case, I think I might have broken it because I kind of forced it because I wasn't sure how it worked. Shh, don't tell anybody. If those guys from that boat show 3 years ago are hearing this, it wasn't me, and it wasn't that time, I'm sure. But a poorly designed fold-away seat, not only is it a pain in the butt, there's a good chance you or someone else is going to break it because you can't figure out how to make the darn thing work. And it's natural. You just start pushing hard, right? That seat on that Grady, super duper easy. And that's another thing, kind of like the hatches, that tells you a lot about how a boat is designed, and how much thought and effort went into producing that boat. Because a really good seat, you grab one thing, you pull it, it's up. You grab one thing, you pull it, it's down. They're not all like that. And I'm sure there are plenty of you watching right now who are going, yep, I was on that Acme Glitzcraft at the boat show 2 years ago, and I tried to open up the seat and I couldn't do it. I'm sure there are folks who are thinking the same thing right now. All right,
Okay.
Dan,
We got a couple questions. You want to jump on?
pop them on in. Yep. We'll save the next slide.
We have one pertaining to actually Grady seats, and actually remind me. Let's circle back. There was a question about the low gunnels and
Okay.
the previous topic. So Gary's looking for a boat right now and noticed that the Grady White seat is exposed. The Pursuit seat is not. He thought it might be a disadvantage that the seat cushion is faced out. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so that's a great, Gary, that is a very observant thing to pick out. Yeah, there is an advantage in having it fold up so it's protected in that it's not exposed to the sun, right? That's going to be the big deal. Having it exposed is not bad from a fishing perspective. It's actually kind of nice because you can lean against it. It acts like a big gunnel bolster, right? But the sun will, take its toll on those cushions. Now, the truth of the matter is, marine vinyls, of all the advancements that have been made in pieces and parts of a boat, fiberglass is still fiberglass, right? Aluminum still aluminum. Marine vinyl has actually, man, it has become better by leaps and bounds, particularly in the last 10 or so years. They've come out with these, I'm going to get the name wrong. They're antimicrobial, so they fight mildew and mold, and they have much better UV protection than they used to. So if I'm looking at a boat and I'm going to buy it new, I'm not sure how much I'm going to worry about that, because that vinyl, there was a time when it would have been good for 3 to 5 years in our region. Today, it's probably more like, 8 to 10 years. So I'm not sure how much I'm going to worry about that. But you're absolutely right. It would last longer being protected. Then you have to look at it and again, go to the trade-off. Would I rather have it more protected and have that vinyl last longer? Or would I rather have the cushy surface to lean up against while I'm fishing versus fiberglass? I think, I'm not going to swear to it, but I think the pursuit seat, it folds up so the fiberglass bottom sits more or less flush and it's fiberglass there. I think that's right. Correct me if it's not. But then you have to ask yourself those questions. Which do I want? Here's another one that Gary, this conversation just reminded me of. Which is easier to clean, right? If you let's say you trailer your boat down to Ocean City and you run offshore and you catch a bunch of mahi and they throw blood everywhere all over the cockpit, it'll be a lot easier to clean it off fiberglass than it will off the vinyl. You can clean the new vinyl, you can get it off, but fiberglass is fiberglass. Scrub with the brush, right? So, interesting. Again, it's one of those trade-off things. Which is better kind of depends on what's most important to you.
Thank you, Lenny. Now, you mentioned the antimicrobial vinyl. What about the leather that we see on so many boats like your Camus?
What about the what? Say again?
The leather finish on seats.
The leather?
Yes.
That's the vinyl. It's vinyl. It's fake
vinyl?
Yeah.
Oh, see?
Yeah. Yeah. Like on my boat, that's all vinyl, but it feels like leather, doesn't it?
I thought it was leather.
That's vinyl has progressed so much. Like it is so much better. And I should back up and say on high quality boats, right? Because you'll still find what they call it marine vinyl, and it's really crappy. But you'll still find that on a lot of really inexpensive boats, or not even necessarily inexpensive, just lower quality. You'll still see the lower quality vinyl. But yeah, that stuff that feels like vinyl on my boat, or feels like leather, that's vinyl.
Awesome.
That's come a long way.
For sure. I know my dad's 84 Whaler's been redone quite a few times over the years.
I had my Glacier Bay for 14 years. I had what I would call high quality marine vinyl, but not the really fancy stuff on it. I had to redo the leaning post 3 times. And the forward, the leaning post 3 times, the seat back 3 times, and the forward console seat was totally protected by the T-top, and the way the boat sat from the sun never hit it, and that actually lasted. I only had to replace that once. That lasted like 7-8 years.
Mm-hmm. So Robert's saying Sunbrella Horizons. That's a product, I think.
I'm not familiar with that one in specific, but Sunbrella makes really good stuff. Like, kind of, I know when it comes to the canvas, you just can't beat Sunbrella. You can't. There might be some competitors who are even, but there's no one I'm aware of that beats it. It's fantastic stuff.
Gotcha. All right. So Lenny, circling back to the deep cockpit versus the low gunnels, Matthew had asked, do you think it's easier to swamp a low bow boat?
Oh, so it depends, but there are a couple other considerations here. Okay. If a big wave is rolling in and the boat is static, the answer is going to be yes, right? Because it has a lower bar to get over. If you're moving, it's not really very relevant, because you're up out of the water. But here's the big but. It's also a lot easier to drain a boat that has very low gunnels. I have had boats through the years that have swamped, and with a low gunnel boat, that power head remains above water. You're swamped, right? So you're walking around in knee deep water now, but you hit the throttle, and all that water just whoosh, rolls right out the back. So it actually, there's some level of controversy out there over which is quote safer. But in certain circumstances, yes, it'll be easier to bring water into the cockpit. It'll also be easier to get water out of the cockpit. If you notice, when you look at Coast Guard inspected boats, right, you look at the boats that are like they need to be able to shed water fast. They tend to have huge amounts of scuppers. They usually have a rail as opposed to a solid gunnel. And that's so that they don't trap a whole bunch of water in there that can't get out. It's actually like a super safe boat actually does not have really high ways to trap water inside of it. Deck drains will only do so much. You won't go deck drains, but when a boat's flooded, you need to be able to get the water out in another way. What?
Sorry.
Zach's playing around in the background again.
I'm just browsing the internet over here.
Was that the low and ominous music to go along with the boat swamping thing?
No, I would have the theme from like Swamp Thing or something. I don't know.
I did. Years ago, I had a 19-foot Twin V, which was a very, very low boat. And it had rails along the sides to give protection for the kids because my kids were young then. And that kept the kids inside. But that boat, if you trimmed it right and ran it right, you could literally chop the top off of a wave. Like you'd be blowing along at 30 miles an hour. You just chop the top off. The whole wave would come right into the boat. And it would fill the boat up and then wash right out the back.
Mm-hmm. All right, Gary's got a follow-up here. Your Camus is a bay boat. If he's not mistaken, it means that it can be used in oceans and rivers with a lower draft, trolling motor, a 27 Grady versus your boat. I'm sorry, that didn't read right. What would you say is the biggest difference, and is it really one better over the other in the bay versus
Okay, first off,
27 Grady Canyon versus the Camus 26?
I'm going to jump right on the last part of that. Is one really better over the other? No. They're different. It's all trade-offs. It's all what's better for you and what's better for me. The 27 Canyon is a rocking boat. That's a really good boat. I've been on that boat. I think I fished that boat as opposed to just testing it too. The Grady folks are great about going out fishing when you want to do a boat test because they want you to spend time on their boat. They want you to get to know it. Different boats are better for different people, for different uses, for different things, and on top of that, in different weather. If I was going to, so the Camus is actually they call it a hybrid bay boat. It's designed to be able to take out into the ocean if you want on a nice day, bay anytime, rivers, shore, absolutely, right, and sneak into the shallows. The 27 Grady, I don't know offhand what the draft is, but it's going to be a little bit more than the Camus. And so that gives you an advantage when it comes to things like fishing for specks or reds in the shallows of the Tangier. That Grady's got a big, tall bow. It's probably going to ride pretty darn good when you got some big seas. You're probably going to be able to crunch through them a little better in the open water. So, there's an advantage there in each thing. And this is why all boats are trade-offs. You can't, there's no such thing as the perfect boat. It does not exist. It just doesn't exist. So you can't say one is better than the other. As soon as I hear that, I want to say for what? And then I want to follow that up by saying best for you or best for me. Your budget's your budget. My budget's my budget. So I might not be able to afford that boat. I may be able to afford this one, and it might work out great for me. There are just so many different factors coming into play here. But that Canyon's a rocking boat. I know that boat. Hey, Walt, what's happening? Do you think does he say 1.1?
Yes, of course. It's
1.1 fishing rod holders. I always say you need at least one per foot of boat. I think that's mandatory. I don't know where he came up with 1.1, but Walt is a numbers guy. So I think he's probably working on a formula. For those of you who don't remember, Walt is the one who actually came up with max speed, which if you haven't checked it out and you're going to troll for mackerel, go to fishtalksmag.com, go to the search box and type in mackerel and read the article on max speed, because Walt figured out the mathematical formula to tell you exactly what the ideal trolling speed is going to be for mackerel on any given day. And it boggles my mind that someone can finesse numbers like that, but Walt can do it.
Now, my kayak is a boat, so this is relevant. But when
Absolutely.
fully rigged, my 13-foot kayak has 11 rod holders.
Mm.
So you know.
Next Christmas, if I buy 2 rod holders, will you just stick them on there somewhere?
I think I need 2 more.
Yeah, you got to find somewhere to put them, even if you don't use them.
David says the 22-foot Glacier Bay had 33.
That sounds about right. I'm not sure, but that sounds about right.
Lenny, we got 3 minutes until kayak math is different. Well, we could talk all night if you want. We do have 2 more slides.
We better jump to them. We'll jump to them real quick. We can go late. I don't care. But let's get.
Gary has another question though. Why don't you?
Okay.
So he's curious about your thoughts on weight, beam, and length of center console's roll. There's some weird. We're losing some characters.
Oh, so yeah, I don't know what that is. So rolling depends on more than. First off, it relates to the relationship between those factors, but it depends on more of that too. You got to talk about transom dead rise. You have to talk about center of gravity. You have to talk about the height of the center of gravity. That's a big one. There are a whole lot of different variables that come into play. You can, and this is a trap people fall into. People say, oh, there's a perfect length boat because it spans 3 waves in the bay. People say, oh, there's a perfect width boat because it doesn't rock and roll as much. It doesn't work that way. All these different factors in how a boat is designed and how a boat is built all work together. My Glacier Bay is a great example. It had phenomenal static stability. A lot of cats do. You could walk side to side, the thing wouldn't move. When you got in a tight beam sea of just a foot or 2, it would snap roll like crazy because it was so stable. It wanted to right itself too quickly to be comfortable. That's one weird quirk. But what I'm trying to get across is there's no one item to look at here. These all, and you can't just look at all these items because these items all work together. They all kind of mesh in different ways on different boats. I don't think you can say an 8.5 beam is more or less stable than a 9.5 beam because everything else comes into play, and you can't say X is more stable than Y, with a possible exception of transom dead rise. Less transom dead rise is, pretty much always going to be more stable. But then you got to get into where's the center of gravity and how high is it? And, your boat with a really low transom dead rise might actually not be as stable as my deeper transom dead rise with, the other variables coming into play differently. Is that clear as mud? It's a very complex question. And we should recognize that marine architects have been struggling with this for hundreds of years, right? If not thousands. I mean, there's no easy answer there. If you hear an easy answer, immediately suspect the source. There's not an easy answer.
Okay, another tough question.
Oh God, another toughie. Are seakeepers worth the investment? Okay, here's what I'm going to say about that. First thing is, are they worth the investment is purely dependent upon you and your budget and how much you want one and how much you can afford one. I can't answer that question for you. But what I can tell you is they're like magic, like they truly are. You press the button, the boat stops rocking and rolling. It's shocking. It's utterly unbelievable. And people who used to get seasick don't get seasick. And all of a sudden, you're on the boat on a really rough day trolling in a beam sea, and you're not even tired at the end of it. I mean, it is shocking. So you can take that little tidbit and put it with however your budget looks to make the decision as to whether or not it's worth the investment. But they are utterly amazing.
And Lenny, I'd like to mention they're typically at the Annapolis Boat Show. They'll probably be at the Bay Bridge Boat Show. You can try one out for yourself on the demo dock. They're usually there every year, and you can get a ride and experience it for yourself. And I have, and it is magic. Like
It's magic. And you know another really cool thing? Let's throw in another plug here. Seakeeper's a Maryland company. How cool is that?
I was not aware of that.
Yes, it was yeah. I forget exactly where. I want to say Southern Maryland, but they're based in Maryland. I think they got places all over the place, but it's a Maryland company, so you gotta love it.
We're gonna keep plugging. We're gonna keep plugging here. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, keep it going, man.
Ready for more plugging? All right, our good friend Dan over at Brown Dog Marine is now a proud new distributor and installer for Seakeeper. So Dan's located over on the Eastern Shore. And if you go to fishtalkmagradio.com, you can go and see his new ad on our website. He's a proud sponsor of our fishing reports, and he is now a new Seakeeper dealer in Maryland. So
fight the fish, not the roll. I love it.
Yeah, it's great marketing.
Absolutely. All right,
Okay.
do we have more questions?
2 more slides.
What's that?
We got 2 more slides. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Oh, hey, Eric.
You know what Eric said to me the other night at Angler Night at Boatyard Bar and Grill? He said, "Man, I need to fish more."
I want to hug him right now.
He said, "These guys are so cool. All these guys are so cool."
I love it.
Put some rod holders on his boat.
I suggested that more than once.
They're going like the perfect mackerel speed. They're going like 6 to 8. It's a sailboat, guys. It's a sailboat. All right, we got 2 more slides. Here we go.
All right, let's bang through them. Here's one thing we haven't talked about yet when it comes to fish boats, and that is performance. And seakeeping rolled in with performance. You got to take a sea trial. Like, you should never, ever, 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 ever buy a boat without going for a sea trial. That you really need to do it. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with how, stability, how a boat takes the waves, how wet is a boat, all this stuff. You can't judge that on land. You just can't. You really need to be on a boat on the water, and you got to try and go in all different directions. So you get a head sea, a beam sea, a following sea. You got to stop the boat and drift for a little bit and see what it feels like adrift. You really got to spend time on a boat to get a sense for it. One thing I do want to mention, and this is something that I can't stand about a lot of the reviews we do that are on land, is we can't run these boats, right? I hate that. Believe me, if I could, I wish I had the ability to run them all. But whether you're on land or researching a boat, or don't have time for a sea trial, whatever, one good thing to do is to go to the engine manufacturer's website and look up their performance reports. You can go to YamahaOutboards.com and look up the performance reports. Suzuki's got them. Mercury's got them. I don't believe Honda does, and I don't know about the other outliers, but these companies give performance reports where they've tested the boat with a particular outboard, and they tend to be extremely reliable. And that wasn't always the case, but I know from talking to these guys, that the guys that actually publish them, in-house at the companies, they don't want to get this wrong, because what they're most scared of is somebody seeing a report, and let's say the report says 60 miles an hour top end on a particular boat, and then someone buys that boat and it only goes 55. Well, they're pissed. They're now an unhappy customer. And they went through some of that in the early days of the internets, when these reports were first started to get published. And they're very careful to make sure, if anything, they're conservative. They're very careful to make sure they don't overstate their case. So you really can depend on these reports. Now, if you're looking at, I don't know, a 21 footer with a 175, you might only find a performance report with a 150 or with a 200. I don't know. But you can look at those numbers and, really pretty well trust them and consider them to be accurate. One caution on that. Almost always, like 99% of the time, those tests are done with a light boat. There's usually only 2 people aboard, maybe 3, and there's probably, a quarter tank of fuel, maybe a half. So always keep that in mind because that'll have a big effect on how your boat will run. My boat is a great example. When I took delivery of it intentionally, before I put as much as a scrap of paper on it, I made sure I had about 10% fuel, and I went out and ran it alone, just because I wanted to see what the absolute best speed I'd ever get was. And it was 52. I got up to 52. Since then, the highest I've seen is 48, right? Because now it's full of fuel. Now it's got a bunch of people on board. And that's the kind of difference you're going to see. So if you look at that performance report and it says 50, look to see, they'll publish how much fuel's on board, how many people. Look to see how much weight was on that boat. And then okay, they're doing 50 right there. When I get a crew together and I fill up the fuel tanks, I'm probably going to do 46, 47. That's going to be the top end. Their cruise was 38 like that. Mine's going to be 35. You can make a decent judgment. All right, Zach, go ahead and take us to the next and final slide. And I like this one. I really do. The very best way to judge the darn boat is to go fishing on it. There's no substitute. There truly is no substitute. Remember earlier we were talking Grady White, and I said Grady White will take me fishing on a boat test? That's one of the reasons. God, I love that company. They do everything right. But that's one of the things that I really super duper love because they're confident in their boats. They want you to get to know it. And when they have a new boat out, they take you fishing. When they came out with oh gosh, I'm blanking on the model number, but the big canyon, the 47 footer, I think. They were like, come to North Carolina, we're going to go fishing all day long. And that's what we did. And that's how you really, really learn about a boat. Even then, your knowledge isn't complete because maybe it was a windy day or maybe it was a calm day. Who knows? Maybe the wind was out of the north and it's going to be one way, and when the wind's out of the south, it'll be a little different. But it gives you just a much, much better idea of how the boat is. So here's where we say that the internet and Facebook is not an awful thing. It does have positive consequences. Here's one is you may be able to find somebody who has the boat you're looking at who's willing to let you go fishing with him for a day. Just go up on Facebook. Hey, I'm looking at the new Acme Glitzcraft 21. Does anyone around here have one? I'd love to go for a fishing trip and I'll buy the gas, right? And then you can spend a day on the Acme Glitzcraft and really get to know it in depth. That's unbeatable in getting to know a boat. Zach, I think we're just barely over time, but if we have any other questions, let's field them. Yeah, it's not too late. If we haven't, this isn't like, it's not like we have a hard wall we hit against. So if we got any, are there any questions out there that we should field? Where can I go and get a Grady White protest in this area? Meaning, can I just go to a dealer and they'll say, yeah, we'll drop a boat in the water and give you a test ride? Oh, I think was protest supposed to be test ride or sea trial? I'm like, protest? What do you protest?
I think that's an autocorrect. Boat test.
Oh, boat test. All right. So Gary, very simple. Give a call or an email to the people at Tri-State Marine. They do a very good job. There's no doubt in my mind that if you're seriously considering a Grady White, they will take you for a test ride. And Tri-State they actually have, it's supposed to be like one of the biggest showrooms in the country, biggest indoor boat showrooms in the country. And whichever Grady you're looking at, they're going to have it If not, they can get it. But I mean, I think they keep a pretty darn big selection on hand. And they also own the little tackle shop boat ramp place in Deal. And so they have no problem, sticking a boat in the water and going for a ride. Tri-State, they're the folks to call.
Important question: is that a Merlot or a Shiraz? Mine's a red blend aged in oak barrels, and it came in a cardboard box.
It did come in a cardboard box, but Matthew, it's neither a Merlot nor a Shiraz. This is actually a Malbec.
Wow. So I'm always confused by the Shiraz and the Syrah. The Petite Syrah and the Shiraz, it's like the same grape. Anywho,
you got me. All I know is I get the box and I like it.
All right. I had a question that if it didn't come up tonight, I was going to ask a similar question to Raymond with some of the older boats. What should I look for in hull build
Hull
structure?
structure, stringers.
And mine was pertaining to wood in the older boats and current models with wood.
What's that?
Wood.
Right.
Versus composite, pertaining to that question.
Wood actually is and always has been a really good boat building material. The question is, has it been sealed up properly? You have to think of it as a core, right? Not as wood and not as fiberglass, but wood makes a really good core for fiberglass. Now, in a lot of cases, you end up with rot, like it's unavoidable. But, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, they came out with a pressure treated ply that has a lifetime guarantee. So if it rots, you got someone to point the finger at, and it's not really likely to rot. Remember, when you look at a Bayless, right, or a Ricky Scarborough, or a Weaver, look at the best boats in the world that are built with no expenses spared. Guess what? They're wood. There's usually triple planked Okumi ply sheathed in fiberglass. Wood's a good boat building material. The question is, was it used right? That's really the question. Now, as far as looking for the hull structure, stringers in a new boat, honestly, Raymond, it's too big a topic to just broach out of nowhere right here, right now. There's a what ton to look for. I will say, in today's modern boat market, hull structure and stringers is not the worry that it used to be. Between the NMMA and the ABYC and the Coast Guard, and the NMMA and ABYC go way beyond the Coast Guard, right? Coast Guard is very basic standards. NMMA standards go much farther, and they actually send inspectors to the boat building plants. They do. I've actually joined them to do an article for Boating Magazine. The inspectors go to the plant and make sure that the builder is keeping that model up to the ABYC standards. They really eliminate a lot of the big worry about, is this boat going to break? That's just kind of not going to happen, barring anything, traumatic. The hull, stringers, deck structures in this day and age are really very, very reliable. I have done some different articles on specifics to look for through the years. If you Google boat construction Rudo, you'll come across them. But there's many things to talk about there. There's one entire conversation about stringers and how much are necessary and how should they be made and how should they be attached to the hull. Are they attached? Are they molded in? That's one conversation. Then the hull's a whole other conversation. Bulkheads are a whole other conversation. So I don't want to go farther than that. We'll be here until 3:00 in the morning. How are we doing, Zach? What did I answer your question?
Yes, you did.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
Well, I see a lot of follow a lot of people that follow classic boats and these a lot of cool old boats here, and a lot of them have wood construction. I see a lot of people pulling stringers and redoing transoms and stuff like that.
I redid stringers and transom in my crabbing skiff, not last year, but the year before. They're wood. They were replaced with wood. The boat was built in, I think, 84. How long ago was that? It's a long time ago. It was before there was pressure treated plywood. It was just crappy plywood back then. And
As
it
of,
lasted that long.
I get it. Andrew claims that as of 2 years ago, Grady was still using wood in the halls, but however, not anywhere water intrusion could have been an issue. So that's something to research.
I don't know the answer to that. I remember about 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when they started using foam core stringers instead of wood core stringers. And they were very hesitant to do it because they knew that the wood really absorbed vibration and provided the strength and did a very good job. And Grady is a very conservative company. They don't just go do stuff. They try it out for a long time, and then maybe they'll do it if it works out great.
Gary says that they're no longer using wood, so it's possible 2 years ago, but maybe he's claiming they don't now. So anyway, call Tri-State, they'll know the answer.
Yeah, it was like 10, 15 years ago they started the phase out on the wood thing, but they did it very carefully. I don't remember if they used the pre-core foam core stringers. I don't remember. Yeah, Tri-State will tell you. It's the guys at Tri-State.
All right. Well, that was awesome.
Wood does get a bad rap. Can I just say that?
What?
Wood gets a bad rap. 30 years later, you have to replace a transom. I mean, please, if it was all composite, something else on that boat would have gone wrong in 30 years. 80, 90, 04, 14. Wait a minute. It's more like 50 years.
No, 84? No.
84? 84 to 94, 94 to 04, 04 to 14,
It's
14 to
39.
24. More like 40 years.
39.
Okay, more like 40. I'm sorry. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. I'm not a math guy.
All right. So Gary said he talked to Tri-State. They said no more wood. Again, Tri-State is also a dealer for Parker boats. They use wood stringers until they were purchased by Chris Craft.
Yeah, wood got a bad rap years ago. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It is a very strong core. It absorbs vibrations great. If you use the proper wood and encapsulate it properly, it's not a problem. Again, look at a Bayless. Look at a Weaver. Those boats are cored with wood. Nobody complains about them rotting out.
I mentioned my dad's 84 whaler earlier. Tri-State actually just restored it. We're talking about Tri-State a lot. We think they were a sponsor. However, it's an 84 whaler. I'm fairly certain that has a wooden transom in that boat.
I wasn't aware that whaler ever even used a wooden transom.
Well, there was a lot of wood in the boat, in the seats, in the in the console,
you're right.
console brackets or whatever. That's all been replaced with composite since, but I'm pretty sure there's still some wood in that boat, and it's never been an issue.
You're right. When I was growing up, we had a Nauset, a Boston Whaler Nauset, which there was wood everywhere. Now that you say that,
Those are 70s. That's a 70s whaler, right?
That's probably right. It was when I was a little kid. Yeah.
Anywho, it was a great show, Lenny. Thank you. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. I do want to circle back on some of the dates we talked about at the beginning of the show because I was wrong.
Uh-oh.
And I hate being wrong.
Uh-oh.
But I was right about a few things. Anyway, Fly Fishing Film Tour, April 27th. Tickets will sell out for this event. I think they're only $30. You just click over to flyfilmtour.com. You select ticket schedule and tickets, and then go Maryland. And there's one event. Now, this used to be at Oregon Ridge Park up in Cockeysville, and they're not holding it any longer. COVID kind of put a squash on all that and never kind of resurfaced. So that's why Annapolis Maritime Museum is gladly hosting it now this year. So definitely check that out. Even if you just love fishing, it's going to be worth it. If you're not a big fly fisher, it's still going to be cool. As far as the winter fishing shows go to fishtalkmag.com. Here's the long URL. You can just go to Fish Talk Mag, type in shows up there. The search bar works great if you're not familiar with it. And we have tons of March shows. And I was wrong about the March shows, Lenny. That's what I wanted to circle back on. The Ultimate Light Tackle Seminar is sold out. But next weekend, a couple shows. The Great Bridge Fishermen's Association down in Chesapeake, Virginia. The Essex Middle River. That's a long-running show. That's always a big hit up in Rosedale. the Maryland Fly Fishing Collectible Tackle Show up at Towson. The Smurfo show is actually the 18th, 19th. I was incorrect saying it was next weekend. That's where I was incorrect. And
No,
then,
you said the weekend after next. You did.
okay, so whatever. Well, anyway, I
You're
just wanted to,
You're good.
I missed a few shows. We're gonna have magazine. You can pick up the latest fish talk at a lot of these shows. And then the Maryland Sportsman shows at the Howard County Fairgrounds. And that's a 2-day event with hunting and fishing.
I'm glad you circled back on that one for the Great Bridge guys, because the Virginia folks definitely want to know about it. They're not going to come to Essex. So it's good for them to know that one's going on too.
Absolutely. And lastly, I just wanted to mention tomorrow's Friday. So it's Friday, Lenny.
The fishing reports?
The fishing reports.
Ah.
Fishing reports. You know, Lenny and Dylan they pull all the stops. They're not holding everything they know, they're putting it out there. Some people might call that spot burning. We're calling it building a better angling community by sharing intel, sharing how-to tips and where to go fish. Because not everyone has, like, you know, every day to go find all this stuff, and we're just trying to help people out.
It's all in there. I think it's funny. Sometimes a friend will like text me and say, "Hey, what's going on XYZ?" And I'm like, "Dude, read the reports." I don't know. If I know it, it's in the report.
I mean, like, you caught that catfish exactly 1 week ago. You caught catfish. You caught a carp.
Couple carp.
Crappie, bluegill. I mean, you put all that out there the next day.
Oh yeah, it was in there the next day. Absolutely.
It's a 24-hour report, of all the information, and no perch, unfortunately. But there was perch in that catfish's belly.
Yes. I thought I didn't catch any perch, but I was wrong. I did catch one.
So I've been getting a lot of texts about perch runs lately. And go to the reports. Everything's in there. So
everybody's looking. It's time. The time is here.
And of course, you can always submit your reports to Lenny at Fish Talk Mag.
I love it. And you know what, people? So when you get skunked, send me a report. I love that because let's face it, most people report when they have a banner day. And it's really easy. 10 guys go fishing. One of them catches a ton of fish, and he screams and shouts to the moon and the stars, and everybody else is like, "Man, what did I do wrong?" But really, 9 out of 10 people didn't catch anything. So it's good to get those skunk reports in there too, and let them, the folks reading it, know that hey, maybe I'm not the only one.
Yeah, smiling kids. We love the smiling kids too.
Right.
Well, it's been a great show. Thank you, Lenny. And
thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you had fun. I had fun. That was a good night. I had a fun time, and I have more back.